This podcast is part of the Deluxe Edition Network. To find other great shows on the network, head over to deluxeeditionnetwork.com. That's deluxeeditionnetwork.com.
Hold on, stop.
Welcome back to the Shit Show 2.0.
Okay, Boomer.
Damn millennials. Wow.
Did not know that. Even flirters who are obviously mentally ill. You want to be my wife?
Oh, this is going to go downhill real quick.
What is going on, and welcome to Take on the World with...
Yours truly, Johnny.
and Mike D.
Every time.
Every time. As you can hear, we have a little bit of... Well, we had some sound issues for quite some time since we started. First, we had some camera issues.
Oh, crap. Now you got some hat issues. Yep, keep going. Sound issues were crap.
So we got new mics, and the new mics made a little bit of a difference. However, we got a new soundboard now, and oh my God, I think it sounds 1,000 times better.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
So we're finally in the proper century for sound. However, I'm going to preface this by saying we just taped this entire episode, and we have to do it a second time because Mikey fucked up. I forgot to change the mic inputs on my recorder, and well,
I was not there.
it was all Mike. There was no Johnny, which probably could be a good thing.
I was not. This is a twofold thing, right?
Yeah. Well, we're there now, I think.
Come on.
No, touchy the balls.
He gets really weirded out.
Mm-mm. So, I almost had that same sound problem last night when I was a special guest on not Deluxe Edition, Barrel Age Flex. We did the top five wrestlers of all time. And at first they had to walk me through fixing up my inputs for my mic on StreamYard. So almost did the same thing last night.
Well, that's good. They showed you through the what to do, and
they led this horse to water.
Led that horse to water.
So last night, which should be out this Wednesday, which
this horse to booze,
which would be. Let me see the date here. What's this Wednesday? Where's my mouse? There it is. This the 9th, February 9th. So February 9th, the Barrel Age Flick episode with me and Casey and the Barrel Age Flick crew doing our top 5 favorite wrestlers, their tasting room, which is pretty cool. So that being said, we are on the Den Network, the Deluxe Edition Network. Go to deluxeeditionnetwork.com. Check out all the podcasts that are on there. It's like 15 or 18 podcasts now that are on there. It's amazing how it's grown. They're all great podcasts. The podcast of the month for the month of February, if this is still February when this has come out, because I've screwed up enough today. It could be fucking December till this comes out.
You're a complete failure, Michael.
I am. I know. I'm so such a bad person. It's Spoil My Movie and World's True Crime. So if you're into movies, check out Spoil My Movie. If you're into true crime, which me and John both are, check out World's True Crime. And then when you're done with that, go to specifically the ones that my voice has been on, because I have a golden voice. And you can hear it now because we have good sound equipment. So I'm going to take a short break here.
Go for it.
And we'll be right back.
Hello, everyone. My name is Brad.
And I'm Denise. We are the hosts of World's True Crime Podcast. Every Monday, we release an episode researched by me about the most heinous criminals throughout history from across the globe.
And then every Thursday, we will release an episode from me about disappearances, UFOs, the unexplained, and strange history. To lighten up the episode, we take part in movie trivia at the time of the incidents.
You can find us everywhere you listen to podcasts and find us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook.
We also can be found at worldstruecrime.com. So just remember, everybody, the world's not always as it seems.
No, it's not.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
I'm Chris,
And I'm Mel.
and together we host the podcast
Spoil My Movie. We were watching movies anyway,
And we were having in-depth conversations about those movies too.
so we decided to share our thoughts with the world.
You can expect me to gripe about inaccurate details like supposedly cold weather, but you can't see anyone's breath.
And you can expect me to be totally adorable, but also psychologically deep.
And by the end of each episode, we'll provide our respective ratings.
Using a rating scale custom tailored to the movie in question.
Check us out wherever you get your podcasts.
We're everywhere. We're actually behind you right now.
And we're back.
I'm a new man. Ah!
That short little break woke him up.
Woke me up. I'm ready to suck some dick and kill people. I mean, whoops.
In a van down by the river. Speaking of what's coming up, February 14th.
Oh, that is the Love Island of America.
So February 14th, I have a special broadcast
Special.
coming out, the bonus.
Boner.
I taped with Ray the Podcaster from
Special boner.
the Deluxe Edition and 10 Cent Beer Night. Ray the
10 cent whore night.
10 Cent Beer Night. Ray the Podcaster and I sat down and did a side-by-side comparison of the two My Bloody Valentine movies.
Perfect.
So go back and look for that because I'm sure this is coming out way after that.
If you don't love old 80s movies and then compare them to like a remake, you're missing a lot.
Well, here's how this came up, and you know my feelings on remakes.
I know you changed me.
This came up because
I can't listen to it.
I said I could turn it down a little bit.
No, it's weird. It's like a weird. Go ahead.
I said that this was the remake of that movie was one of the only remakes that I liked better than the original.
Right.
And then after sitting down and watching them both, I was wrong.
Oh,
I like the original.
You've changed.
Yeah.
See, there's every once in a while there's a couple movies that will be better than the original.
And I thought this one was, but the main reason it wasn't, and since this is coming out long after the 14th, I could tell you, it's because the second one was shot in 3D. So there was more CGI in it, and I liked the practical effects much better.
Okay, so how about this? You don't have Netflix, but All's Quiet on the Western Front.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you have to see that, dude.
I've seen...
It was done in the 30s and the 70s.
I saw the 70s version.
Cheesy as fuck.
I kind of liked it.
It is what it, but the one that's redone now,
You're saying it's better.
way fucking better.
I think that's the one area where you could improve on past movies is war movies. I think that's the one area that it's possible. Although
this one was possible and did I liked it way better.
the original Dirty Dozen I liked. The next Dirty Dozen was
Like the 70s one, like like I said, when they got shot, they're like, like very dramatic. And
well, I told you before, that's because the force of the bullets back then was much bigger. That's what it was.
but this one was that very dramatic music. Brr, brr, brr. It was like that very and like shit was going on. It was like brr, brr, brr.
So we were just talking about Svengoolie, right?
Yeah.
So I tape all the Svengoolis, and last Saturday's Svengoolie was Godzilla. There's a Godzilla one, and I used to love the Godzilla movies, but
Godzilla.
The one thing I remember, and this was the one with Raymond Burr in it, and so what they did is they had the Japanese version, and then they had the American version, and what they did is they just shot scenes with Raymond Burr and lookalikes from the original, and you could tell the difference in the cinematography. But when Godzilla comes, when they play the Godzilla music, which has the score has pretty much stayed the same over the years, but the way it's played has been different. Maybe a little more bass here, but I always remember when Godzilla was coming out.
Yeah.
And I was trying to tell Deb that, and I'm like, I go back and I found every single Godzilla theme since 1932 on one video, and I'm playing through it. I'm listening to it over and over. But that was pretty cool. So today, for the second time, we are talking about the Vietnam era and the tunnel rats from Vietnam.
Anyways.
Anyhow. Where was I? Vietnam tunnel rats.
I think we started this.
Yeah,
whole
we
thing.
started. Yeah, we started.
Really?
Yeah, you were too busy looking for music.
I think we should do an episode on that.
That would be an awesome episode.
World War One. Oh,
you know what we should do? Watch all three movies and compare them.
You're right.
That'd be good. So, when you talk about Vietnam, the war in Vietnam started in 1954, except the United States wasn't involved until 1965. During the 10 years that the Vietnam War was going on, it posed many challenges for U.S. forces. So now, I was born in 1970. I remember watching the last of the troop withdrawal in 1975. And so it was 65 to 75. But when his forces got there, they pretty much had to deal with stuff they'd never dealt with before, the intense heat. And when it rained, the intense rain. Many of U.S. soldiers suffered from heat stroke, malaria, and trench foot. And the war was so unpopular at home, there was so much unrest, which the soldiers didn't see firsthand, but they felt it when they went home because they were treated like shit. So they're saying over 2/3 of the U.S. population believed our involvement in Vietnam was a mistake. That seems pretty high, doesn't it?
Yeah, 2/3. Yeah,
2/3 is a lot, but that's what they're saying. I don't know. So this was the first war that was like basically televised.
I guess you would have to be there, man. Like you don't know, like you're just coming out of World War II, Korea.
I think the country's just war weary.
Yeah, you're sending teenagers over to go die for what? And there wasn't a clear picture of, it's not like we're fighting Hitler or communism or maybe communism, but it wasn't that big picture. Like it was kind of like convoluted. Does that make sense?
It was very convoluted, and it seemed like the politicians back here wanted to run the war from Congress and not let the people on the ground, people who had no idea what was going on or what they were dealing with, they weren't letting the people that were there make the decisions about the war because they were reacting to public pressure where the people on the ground were just trying to stay alive. So they also had to deal with guerrilla tactics, which is not something that we really dealt with a whole lot before.
This was different.
Yeah, it was very different.
This is like a hole in the ground, pop up, shoot, disappear, heavy cover, the thick canopy of the jungle. How many times have you seen like when you Google or search a Vietnam firefight and you can't see shit?
No, most of the time they're just shooting at nothing.
They're shooting at you can't. And then same thing with the Iraqi war in Afghanistan.
Yeah,
you can't see shit. You're just shooting at like,
Except there, you didn't have. This was the jungle in Vietnam was the thickest and most dense jungle
triple canopy
that we ever had dealt with at that point. Although we had mentioned this before in the first time we did this that nobody heard because you couldn't hear it. Hanoi actually gets snow, which I would never think, and especially in the mountains. And I watched a video of what not to do when you're in Vietnam, and it was a Vietnamese citizen who lived in America for some time, went over there, and she's saying, well, you don't want to do this, you don't want to wear your shoes in the house, but she said dress for the seasons, because if you're in Hanoi, like she said Celsius whatever, but it was like 54 degrees, and I'm like, well, 54 degrees ain't cold, man. Like 8 degrees this morning was cold.
I got my white bear on and shorts. 54 degrees ain't shit. She's like, no, it's 54 Celsius. You're dead.
That's 200 some degrees.
That's like 500 below zero. You're like, what? You walk outside and you die.
So the media coverage made the scrutiny of this war like more than any other war ever. They showed soldiers being wounded. They showed the caskets of those that killed in action. They showed intense combat. But it still was nothing compared to what those on the ground were going through. So the guerrilla tactics that they were fighting against included an extensive tunnel network. So the communist forces began digging these tunnels in the late 1940s when they were fighting against the French colonial authority. So they dug these tunnels because of all the white flags on the ground above them. And they kept on tripping over the white flags that the French
Francois, what is this white flag, eh? Oh, no.
So the French were throwing these white flags all around, and everybody was tripping over them, so they went underground to get away from them. The tunnels were often dug by hand, short distances at a time. So what they said...
Wait. Often dug by... What else were they dug by?
Shovel.
That's like hand.
No, they were digging with their hands.
I would consider with a shovel by hand.
Okay. But
not like your little hand.
But still, what they had to do is they had to dig, and then take the dirt out and get rid of it. But they had to put it someplace where it couldn't be seen from overhead, because if you saw a pile of dirt overhead, you knew there was a tunnel near.
Were they shaking out like
Their pant legs like the Great Escape?
shaking out with their pant legs? It's like a big pitching mound over here.
They would work in their rice paddies all day, and then at night they'd go in and dig, and they might get 4 foot a night. Well, you could take a step that's 4 foot long, and these guys were only getting that far digging every night. So it took them a long time to dig these tunnels. All in all, there was tens of thousands of miles of tunnels dug all throughout the country. But
Tens of thousands.
Yes. Miles. The Chu Chi tunnels near Saigon, which is now Ho Chi Minh City, were some of the best known. When people talk about the tunnels, they often talk about these because a lot of the war was fought in a small area of that part of the country.
I've seen like documentary films of these tunnels, and like they'll have a shooting range where you can go shoot an AK, and then like you walk in and you like jump down into a tunnel and go crawl around, and it's just fucking they're everywhere. It's crazy.
Yeah. The North Vietnamese
and the opening of the crawl space was like the size of this cup.
Yeah, pretty much so.
Yeah, it's like
I could barely. Some of the crawl spaces, when I saw the openings, I could barely get my leg in it.
we would get stuck in there halfway. Oh my God! Somebody come help me!
I wanted to worry about setting off the booby trap. I'd never get down to the ground.
Yeah. Stuck halfway down, like, anybody? Hello?
The North Vietnamese and Viet Cong used the tunnels because they knew they could not match the overwhelming firepower of the United States military. And that's why they used guerrilla tactics, and these tunnels would allow them to circumvent the traditional fighting lines. They go down in the tunnel and they'd pop up behind you.
Well, what do you think we use now? There's no way that we could fight a advanced system like the American military, right?
I don't think anybody can.
Hell no. So you're gonna have to use your.
You got to find a different way to fight a war.
And that goes back to like the Revolutionary War. You remember when the first time the sniper made an appearance?
Yes.
And they're like, anybody who hides in the and he gets shot. and then, it's like, nobody from the trees can shoot anyone.
Well,
you're done.
Who was the sniper we did?
He was the guy.
Hansen?
He hid out in
a cave.
A cave in the Delaware River or some shit.
And he would sit down and he would, like when the river boats were going upriver because they were so slow, he would just sit there and pick them off on the deck of the ship.
Yeah.
And pretty much that's what the Viet Cong were doing. That's what the North Vietnamese army was doing.
Yeah, they would hit and run. Like you'd have a good spot, and then you could just disappear into the jungle.
Yep. And you didn't have to go in the jungle. You just go underground, and you would never be found. They used these they use these tunnels to hide, evade,
pube hairs,
as supply routes, as communication routes, as hospitals. They stored weapons. They stored food, supplies, and they also had living quarters. Sometimes some of these people would be underground for 2 or 3 months at a time.
Oh, yeah. I believe it.
So the American soldiers called them Black Echo because it was so dark in the tunnels, and if you yelled, all you heard was your voice back. Air was not very good in the tunnels. Your food was scarce. Your water was scarce. Even though if you look at the cross section cut of some of these tunnels, and I'll see if I can throw a picture up. They'll dig below the water line and allow the water to fill up, and that would be the well that they would use to get water to use while they were in the tunnels. They'd also use it as a trap for the tunnel rats when they came in. All these things were scarce in the tunnels, but they were infested with venomous snakes, non-venomous snakes, spiders, rodents, venomous centipedes, ants, and bats.
Venomous centipedes?
Yes.
Ooh.
Those big centipedes, they're venomous if they bite you. Yeah, they're nasty. They dealt with disease and malaria because that ran rampant through the tunnels. Many Viet Cong and North Vietnamese soldiers had intestinal parasites from being in the tunnels so much. Although the exact number is not known, it's thought to be at least 45,000 Vietnamese died defending the Chu Chi tunnels during the war. So today, the Chu Chi tunnels measure some 75 miles, and they have been preserved by the Vietnamese government. They're still there. They're a popular tourist attraction, and they actually made larger tunnels for tourists so they could crawl through the safer sections of the tunnel. Ben Do contained the original tunnels, and Ben Zing have been reconstructed and enlarged for larger tourists because the average size of a Vietnamese soldier was 5'6", 135 pounds. The average size of an American soldier was 5'9" and 200 pounds. They have lights installed in them now to make it easier to go through, but back then they either used candles or torches or nothing. So you either travel through darkness, you'd have candles.
You just walk through that thing dark as shit, like,
yeah,
get shot.
If they heard someone coming, they would out in all the lights and all the torches, so they had nothing to see by. But Vietnam wasn't the only place that tunnels were used. Berlin had over 1,000 bunkers, just the city of Berlin, and a lot of them were interconnected with tunnels. Now, they call them bunkers. They didn't call them tunnels, but that's basically what they were. Afghanistan, during their war with Russia, had many tunnels and caves, and when we found Saddam Hussein, he was hiding in
It was in a spider hole.
Yeah, spider hole. So,
Yep.
they also used them again against Great Britain and the United States and coalition forces during the Gulf Wars. So when they found a tunnel entrance, it had to be searched, cleared, and possibly destroyed. They often contained valuable intelligence and supplies. But the tunnels presented two difficulties for the Army. They were small, and they were often too small for soldiers to fit in, and then they were unknown, like that you had no idea where they were going.
Yeah, sure.
Tiny tunnels, most measured 2 feet by 3 feet, meant the soldiers could only enter one at a time. Now, here's what they did. They made the top of the tunnel narrower than the bottom, and that would prevent cave-ins. But what it also prevented, if a tank, some of the tunnels were like only 10 feet underground. If a tank went over top of that tunnel, if you had the whole track on the top of the tunnel, it would just collapse. But they made them small enough at the top that only half of the track of the tank would ever fit over top of the tunnel. So the other half was on solid ground, and it wouldn't collapse. The entrances were generally very well hidden and camouflaged, and they were sometimes booby-trapped. Some were simple, shallow structures used as refugee or fighting positions, or as we saw in that training documentary, what they do is they go to a bank of a river, and they dig back just so they could, in the jungle, jump down in this tunnel, get out to the river, and get away. Some went thousands of feet and were built in multiple levels and chambers, 3 or 4 levels deep.
Thousands of feet?
Thousands of feet long, and 30 to 40 feet deep. They were built so well that dropping a 750-pound bomb landing 50 yards away had no effect on the tunnel or the tunnel entrance. Sometimes they would try to smoke out the Viet Cong with tear gas or smoke grenades, which usually failed in larger tunnel networks, because what would happen is you had several entrances, and in the training video that we watched,
Right, it would go.
It would go right out. It pushed right out. It would never go deep enough to clear the tunnel. But they would take their poncho and put it over the thing and pipe the smoke or gas or chemical through the poncho, and that would seal the end that they were on, and then it would push through the tunnel to find another way out.
Some real fat guy squat over the hole and just start just feed him beans. I'm like, oh God, we give up. What is that smell?
So in the beginning, the job of entering the tunnels went to the smallest soldier in the squad. They would just say, John, you're smaller than Mike, you're going in.
Like, no.
No.
I'm fat. He's smaller than me. We've mentioned each other. He's smaller than me.
So, and that's how it started, but it got to a point where that no longer worked. So in the tunnels underground, they could move an entire army from one place to another. They could train, they could plan. And in one case, the Chu Chi tunnels were built right with a major U.S. military base right on top of them. Like, I found that amazing. Like, how do you not know it's there?
They would have never heard it. Just constantly digging around, and you would have never known.
So they got to the point where just sending the smallest guy in didn't work. So enter the official tunnel rat, Captain Herbert Thornton, a chemical corps officer in the 1st Infantry Division, was responsible for contaminating the tunnels with chemical agents. He created a specialized team to enter and clear and exploit the tunnels in 1966. Deliberate tunnel clearance responsibilities fell to this group of volunteers, engineers, and chemical weapons experts. So they would take guys and they would send them to Australia to train them to use these tunnels. And if they captured a tunnel, they would use that as a training ground for new tunnel rats. Tunnel rats moved from ad hoc discovery to writing a new set of tactics and techniques and procedures to clear the tunnels. So at first it was just, I'm doing what I got to do to get in there, get out. And then they basically created a manual, and that's what that training video we watched was all about. Like, that was the introduction to tunnel ratting. Or Tunnel Rat 101. Tunnel rats became unofficial specialty for volunteer combat engineers, infantrymen from Australian and U.S. Army who were sent to explore the tunnels. And they had a Latin motto, which was kind of tongue-in-cheek, non gratis annis rodentum, which means not worth a rat's ass.
You like that one, don't you?
I love that one. I love that. That's why I sent that to you in a text. Mm-hmm. I'm like, that's funny.
No gratis annis rodentum. Not worth a rat's ass.
So the Australian troops of 3rd Field Troop have made the argument that they were the first of the Allied troops to enter the tunnels. And I tend to believe that because they sent our tunnel rats to go train with them in Australia before they sent them in the tunnels. So tunnel rats were given the task of destroying them, gathering intelligence within them, or killing or capturing their occupants, often in conditions of close combat. Typically, a tunnel rat was equipped with only a standard 1911 pistol, an M1917 revolver, a bayonet, a flashlight, and explosives. Now, a lot of them got away from the 1911 because, a 45 with a, with a loud report in such a close space could deafen you. But what they would do is they'd take their bayonet and they'd go into the entrance, and two guys would hold their feet and dangle them down into the entrance. And they would go down
stab around
in the dirt to try to find if there was any booby traps. And it wasn't until they cleared that space that they'd go down. Then they'd have their pistol and their flashlight, and they would move down along the tunnel, and they'd keep stabbing and finding out.
What about that, Johns?
Well, maybe they did it two-handed.
Think they're cutting up a salad. Woo, yeah. We got this shit. Like cucumbers coming up, radishes, carrots.
So,
well, I asked Michael, were there Marine Corps veterans that were tunnel rats? Because I always thought they were just Army veterans that were tunnel rats. And from my research, I believe there were Marine Corps tunnel rats.
I think it was mostly Army, but I think there was Marine Corps tunnel rats
Which
too.
is why I gave the USMC K-bar. Fucking A right.
And the M16 bayonet.
Fucking A right. Stab me in the chest, Michael. Do it.
I'm not going to do it.
Do it.
I can't.
Do it.
I can't.
Can. Yes, you can.
My arm kind of hurts. I have no objection to killing you, but my arm kind of hurts.
Anyways, back to you.
So eventually what they did, you can put them back in, is instead of using 1911, they found that a 38 special with a suppressor was much quieter, or they use a World War II era suppressed standard HD 22 automatic or a 25 caliber. The problem is those weapons were far and few between for them, so a lot of them were stuck with just the standard issue 1911.
That is surprising. They used the silenced. I didn't know that.
The 38.
38. Whatever.
38 special silenced.
Yeah.
I've actually never seen one, but
silencers are like not something you hear. Like I've never heard of that. Not to say it's not possible. I mean, I've heard of it, but like not in that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Which is cool. So I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah.
If you're going down there, I want something to.
I don't want something that's gonna pop and burst my eardrums.
Like a tube wrapped in a fucking wet rag or something that's gonna muffle the sound.
Or an oil filter.
Shoot through an old intestine tract.
So, besides the obvious VC enemies, they had to deal with rats, snakes, scorpions, ants, poor air quality, possibility of cave-ins due to poor construction. However, the construction wasn't really poor on these. They were done very well. They would take layer and layer of clay, and they'd rub it on. It would be rock hard. Like, you really couldn't, once they got it done, that you couldn't dig your fingers into it and just take a piece out. You really had to work at it to get it out. That's what they were showing in that video, at least. The tunnels were
Where
often...
would you go to the bathroom?
What's that?
Where would you go to the bathroom? Just like piss in a corner somewhere?
I don't know. That's a good
I guess so.
Maybe they had a potty room.
Just maybe that a vent shaft, poop,
A potty poop pot.
potty poop pop.
The tunnels were often booby-trapped with grenades, anti-personnel mines, punji sticks, deadfalls. And when they built them, a lot of times you'd go so many feet and there'd be like a 45 or a 90-degree angle. So it forced them to do hand-to-hand combat because you get so far you couldn't shoot. Like, you get a 90-degree. Plus, if you're crawling through all these 90-degree and 45-degree angles, you have no idea where you are. It's pitch dark down there.
Yeah.
They would also use water pits to drown the tunnel rats, or they would have a portion of the tunnel that they could flood quickly to drown them. A lot of times they use poisonous gas. Some tunnel rats, when they got there, when they found it, they had to make the decision, am I going to wear my gas mask down or not? And 90% of the time, they didn't wear their gas mask because it was harder to breathe, and your field of vision was blocked by the gas mask, which made it even more difficult for them to go through. According to U.S. tunnel route... According to U.S. tunnel route
was that
vets... they usually went without because it made it too hard to see and hear. But when they first started going in, they gave them all this gear to go in, and they had their coat, they had all this shit. But as time went on, they learned to shed their coats, helmets. They would have a flashlight, a bayonet, and a gun, and that would be the only thing they took in with them. Most of them were under 5'5". They were a slight or wiry build, which is not you and me.
Jesus, this is like the size of my daughter.
Yeah. Yeah. Like Nathan would be too tall to go in. They said the job also required a special kind of toughness, crawling through claustrophobic darkness, expecting mortal danger could break down even the bravest man.
Not only that, you forgot crawling for hours.
Yes.
In claustrophobic darkness. Hours.
Yeah. Hours. That's a lot. Hours is a lot of time to be in pitch black. But they said if one of these guys went in and they cracked while they were in there, they never let them go back in as a tunnel rat again. Like if they came out freaking out, like I would, because I'm claustrophobic, like I wouldn't be allowed back in again. So a lot of stuff went on in Vietnam. There was a lot of drinking, smoking, chewing gum, some drugs, maybe.
Maybe not.
These guys...
Maybe go fuck yourself.
These guys wouldn't drink, smoke, chew gum, eat candy. All these things would dull their senses and give their position away. They were trained to survive underground.
I wonder how true that is. Like, you're so hardcore, I can't even eat candy. I don't want none of that goddamn candy.
Dude,
dulls my senses.
I'd crawl out that fucking home like, somebody crack me a beer.
Yeah. Somebody give me a Twix. God damn it. That I don't believe, man. I'm like, nah. What do you think? I call bullshit.
I call partial bullshit. I think maybe they would stay away from smoking. I think maybe they'd stay away from...
Fuck that, dude. They're probably fucking smoking weed.
I think they would stay away from drugs. Chewing gum and candy, I don't know.
You gotta be a half nut to go in there and do that shit.
Yeah, but you'd be half nut to give up all that stuff, too. So they would go with no uniform coat, just a flashlight and a pistol, but the Army wanted them to take communication wire, a compass, a bayonet. So the bayonet they would take because they'd check for traps with it, but oftentimes they would just go in, take their coat, shirt, everything off. As time went on, they took less and less in with them. But when they were ready to come out of the tunnels, there would be an agreed upon tune that they would whistle. So they wouldn't, because they're going to be all muddy and dirty, they didn't want to be mistaken for a Viet Cong guerrilla. According to a former Viet Cong officer, the tunnel rats eliminated over 12,000 guerrillas and captured many more. In a single operation in August 1968, the rats not only killed 3 Viet Cong, but captured 153 people.
Yeah, I can see that.
So I know you had... Do we remember that guy's name?
Yeah. Billy Hamlin.
Okay, so we watched that video with Billy Hamlin, which is shocking in itself because he's so callous and numb to society.
Billy Heflin.
Heflin?
Heflin.
Okay. Yeah, look that up on YouTube and watch that interview. He's being interviewed by an Asian correspondent or interviewer, and he's saying things that are racially inappropriate. But he's not doing it in a demeaning way because in every other respect, he's respectful to her. But
I would have never taken anything he said racially inappropriate.
well, he was saying slang names for Vietnamese and
whatever. Who gives a shit?
But
But
you say that to an Asian person, and they might take offense. So I wanted to talk about this Staff Sergeant Pedro Rejo Ruiz. He was a Cuban refugee who, as a teenager, fought against Fidel Castro's communist soldiers. He would sit and take pot shots at the soldiers. And so he would create confusion amongst them. His family fled Cuba and came to the United States. As soon as he got here, he joined the Army. He started as a mine detector in the 1st Infantry Division before offering his services to the Tunnel Rats. He became known as the human probe. This guy was resilient and as hard as they come. He got injured.
how hard was he?
He was very hard. He got injured in combat, and while he was recovering from that injury, he became a naturalized citizen. When he recovered, he immediately returned to the Tunnel Rats. You okay?
Oh, yeah.
You gonna die?
Go ahead. My stomach just dropped.
Dropped?
Yeah.
You need to go?
No, keep going.
He was one of the few Tunnel Rats who survived. In the early days, the Tunnel Rats had nearly 100% fatality rate.
Oh, my back there goes. Oh, yeah.
I think by the end of the war, it was like 90% fatality rate.
This is what happened before. Is 100% fatality rate?
In the early days. Before they were trained properly and knew what they were doing.
Tighten something there. Yeah, there we go. Just don't destroy the wood. Jesus Christ. Okay. I think this subject deserves to. We're gonna need another look at this subject. I'm sure we got a lot of shit wrong.
I ain't get nothing fucking wrong, bro.
Yes, we did.
I got nothing wrong.
100%.
In the early days.
You keep saying that.
Yes. Because it's true.
He's like the only guy in the early days. He's the guy died 100 times, but I keep dying.
No, when they were just picking someone out of the
No.
My fucking mouth. I'm gonna have to slap you.
Anywho.
Entrances were often difficult to find. Many times there'd be a false entrance that was put there, so they'd say, "Oh, here's an entrance to a tunnel," and it was booby-trapped. Just finding the entrance did not guarantee entry. Viet Cong often booby-trapped doors or placed grenades in nearby trees to kill soldiers who tried to get entry to the system. By 1969, the more experienced Tunnel Rats, they would throw a hand grenade into the entrance, wait for it to explode, and basically it would either kill someone who was laying in wait or set off the booby traps that were down there. Plus, it would actually alert the VC that they were coming, and a lot of the tunnel rats wanted that because that way there'd be no resistance. They would just flee. Other times it was easy. In one instance, a soldier and his German shepherd were walking lead of a patrol when the dog suddenly stopped and sat. The patrol immediately stopped. The dog had been trained to sniff out the enemy. Suddenly, the top of a well-hidden tunnel flew open, and a Viet Cong soldier jumped out holding grenades. He was immediately shot and killed. A tunnel rat went down in the tunnel and captured a high-ranking Viet Cong officer. So the dogs were trained to smell the scent of the Viet Cong. And he's just bebopping along, and all of a sudden he smells it. He sits down. The whole unit goes on alert. And that's it. Dude pops out. They pop him. They catch a high-ranking officer. As Harold Roper, a tunnel rat in the early days of 1966, recalled, I felt more... Roper.
Groper.
No. There's no G. It's just Harold Roper. There's no G. It's not Groper. Rope.
He didn't grope.
Not grope.
He was grope.
No, he was not groping. He was roping. I felt more fear than I've ever come close to feeling before or since. There were only about 100 Army tunnel rats in Vietnam.
No, come on. Really?
Okay, that's. I'm just telling you what it says, bro. Why you
That's
yelling at me?
it? Okay. All right.
Most either died in the tunnels or were ambushed at the surface. There was a special culture among tunnel rats that ensured that no rat, wounded or dead, was ever left inside a tunnel. Tunnel rats went above and beyond to avenge their injured and often fallen comrades. That Staff Sergeant Ruiz, that we talked about before, crawled through choking tear gas into a tunnel with a cratering charge to finish the job after the Viet Cong wounded 2 other tunnel rats that were in that tunnel. Another time, the rats used 300 pounds of C4 to blow off the top of the tunnel system when one of their number had been injured. During one operation, the tunnel rat found 6,000 pounds of rice and 40 pounds of salt in a 120-foot tunnel. Another underground complex covered 2,000 meters and yielded cameras, films, printing press, type press, in addition to the usual cache of weapons and ammunition. In 1970, tunnel rats uncovered a major signal intelligence node underground. Vietnam codebreakers had been intercepting, decoding, and translating every transmission of the 1st and 25th Infantry Divisions. The sudden loss of information immediately made both divisions more effective.
You forgot one bullet point.
What?
Scroll back down.
Oh, the tank.
Yeah.
So they found this communications node, and after they captured it, it saved American lives. Like, they could no longer report on all their movement. So the one I missed was one tunnel rat stumbled across a missing M48 tank the Viet Cong were using as a command center, and others routinely uncovered hidden artillery pieces and mortar.
So that thing was like buried in the ground?
I guess.
Weird.
That is weird. They probably just dug a hole, drove it in, and threw dirt on top of it. In addition to the list of spies passing information to the Viet Cong, the tunnel rats often uncovered maps, orders, battle plans, which helped save more American lives. As the Army improved its ability to process and use the information tunnel rats provided, tunnels became more dangerous than useful for the Viet Cong. So by the time the Tet Offensive and the U.S. counteroffensive came along, like the tunnels were not taken out of play, but they really diminished their role in the war. Tunnel rats were chosen to go down an unfamiliar territory without the benefits of modern technology to deny the Viet Cong any sanctuary in a complicated war with a painful history in American culture. The courage, skill, and nerve of the tunnel rats shone as they invented a military skill in the midst of mortal danger. So, like, we just scratched the surface of this, really, honestly.
Yeah.
There's so much more. And I found so many stories, like the tunnel rats did this, tunnel rats did that.
Mm-hmm.
But you can't get them all in here.
Well, Billy Hamlin.
Yeah. Well, that interview, I think, was just disturbing.
You liked it, though.
What's that?
You liked it, though.
I did like it, but it was disturbing, like how numb he was about war.
Well, then you didn't even hear the last part of it. She's like, "What do you want to do?" He's like, I want to go back." He was like, "I want to go back and kill people."
Yeah, I miss killing people. Like, wow.
I miss the thrill of killing people.
That's not a good place for a mind to be. But they send these kids over there to do this stuff, and then they become accustomed to it, and it's the only thing they know.
They can't adjust to the world back here.
Nope.
No, what do you do?
So that's tunnel rats in a nutshell.
Kind of a nutshell. A very vague nutshell.
It's a small shell.
Small shell.
So we took on tunnel rats in the Vietnam War. Now you go take on the world.
Hold on, stop. Welcome back to the Shit Show 2.0.
Okay, Boomer.
Damn millennials. Wow. Did not know that. Even flirters who are obviously mentally ill. You want to be my wife? Oh, this is going to go downhill real quick.
This podcast is part of the Deluxe Edition Network. To find other great shows on the network, head over to deluxeeditionnetwork.com. That's deluxeeditionnetwork.com.